This is OFN NFL Preview on the Arles Football Network as we preview Week 13 in the NFL. No Thursday night football. It was a crazy week. The week ended very, very late on a Wednesday, so we decided no Wednesday show this week. Let's do it on Friday, and that gives us a clean slate. And we'll find out whether or not we have any more crazy weeks ahead, like the one we just had, Mark. How's it going, Mark Lawrence?
Well, it's going pretty good. COVID aside, we have to deal with what's in front of us, and it's we just deal with the cards that are dealt to us. The National Football League has to keep maneuvering to keep their season going alive, and it's really, really a 50-50 battle whether or not they're going to play all 32 teams, all 16 game schedules or not. They're absolutely doing their best to try to do that, but I know we're getting to a real bad part of the COVID, and it'll remain to be seen whether or not they can accomplish that mission.
Yeah, we'll see. It's good at least that, like you said, I mean, and it's leaving us with these weird midweek games. And I know fans, it's cool. It's almost like college bowl season when you get a Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon game. But, and this was something we kind of touched up on last month when USC had the Arizona State 9 a.m. football game on the West Coast and how sloppy the game was. Well, come on, you can't say that it was sloppy. There was a direct correlation to playing at 9 a.m. You're going to get sloppy football. Well, the same thing with playing a game where you don't have a whole lot of practice and you're doing it where the body just isn't, it's not normal for them to be playing on a Wednesday. It's normal for them to be playing at the time of day, but not on a Wednesday. So the fact that was a real sloppy game the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, I'm willing to just forget it. It doesn't mean anything, especially for Baltimore, who didn't have Lamar Jackson and some key players, but even for Pittsburgh, because they look sloppy.
Well, you know what it's coming down to, Greg, is coming down to they're getting games in just for the sake of getting games in. Not the quality of the game, just because they want to check off 16 games for every team. It's all a money bag draw is what it is. And we're going to suffer for it, the fans and the players too, because the players are being forced to play games that perhaps they shouldn't be in. And you're also playing with practice squad players and call-up players, and it's not really the brand of football that we're used to in the National Football League.
All right, well, we're going to start Week 13 with one of the best games of the week, and could be the best one, and that's Cleveland and Tennessee. Your boys from Cleveland are in a position, and the closer it gets to Week 17, or the closer it gets until they clinch a playoff berth, you wonder whether or not the pressure will start to build up for the boys from Cleveland. But, I look at this game, and there's a couple of reasons I like Cleveland in this one. It's a 6-point spread. I think it's been down to 5.5 today. It's a 2-1 on the money line, which also isn't a bad idea, but I still feel a lot more comfortable taking the points in this circumstance. I'm happy that Myles Garrett is back if I'm backing the Browns, which I am. I don't like the fact that the Browns have lost both of their games this year versus winning teams by a 76-13 margin. Don't like that. They're only 1-3 against winning teams this year. And of course, what I meant was when they're a dog versus a winning team. So, and which is the same position they're in now. So when they're a dog versus winning teams, they've been destroyed 76-13. They did beat Indianapolis earlier this year. They were a 1-point favorite in that game. That's the other winning team. But the 3 losses combined by winning teams are 73 points. That's not good. But I look at it as incentive for Cleveland in this matchup. I think the way they're playing, they're winning ugly, but they're hearing it. They're hearing everybody talk about how ugly they're winning games. And when you're in a situation where people are saying you're winning ugly, you can't beat any good football teams, you're starting to get a little bit healthier. You're getting more accustomed to playing without OBJ. The offense finally woke up. I think this is a really good spot for Cleveland to kind of, there's no pressure on them in this game. There's actually a lot of people that are discounting what's going on in Cleveland. And I think that maybe that's kind of, let's put it that way. That's what I want to see when I'm backing a football team. That's a good football team that's on a nice winning streak that's getting a touchdown.
I concur. And, for all the bad talk they're getting about taking on winning opponents here, you can talk about taking on winning opponents from two different glasses. The pair of glasses that you just discussed about teams that they played that have winning records right now, or teams that they played that had winning records at the time of they played the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it at the time they played the game, Cleveland's 1-1 in only two of those games. Only two teams at the time they stepped on the field had winning records, and they split those two football games. That'll be the case walking into this particular football contest here. I think what really matters in this game is a couple of things. Number one, they own the best rushing offense in the National Football League, 161 yards a game. Okay, and I'm going to throw a stat at you that's going to kind of knock your socks off here. But Tennessee's rush defense is soft also, so Cleveland should take advantage of that. And in games where Tennessee is favored in a non-division game, they're coming off a win, and they allow 100 rushing yards in this game, they are 1-17 to the spread.
Wow.
So if you
so the only hope is if you're backing Tennessee, you have to stop Cleveland's running game to make sure that trend doesn't work.
Exactly. You have to stuff the Cleveland running game, put the pressure on Baker Mayfield, and that has to be their game plan, because the running game has been money, obviously, for Cleveland in this football contest.
Teams,
for both teams, but more so for Cleveland, because they have that 1-2 punch. They can hit you either with their left or a right with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And that running game is getting better and better right now since the offensive line is back intact as well.
And Tennessee, they can rely a little bit more now, what makes them a more dangerous team, because it's taken a couple of years, but they now have a elite number one wide receiver, something Cleveland doesn't have right now. A.J. Brown may not get the full recognition he deserves yet, but I already love what I see out of A.J. Brown, and I knew he had the talent when he came into the league, and he's showing it the last few games. He is now one of the best receivers in football.
Yeah, he is stepping up, and there is no question he's maturing. He's coming into his own. I don't think Cleveland would diss the work of Jarvis Landry this football season. He's been a horse, and especially since Odell Beckham has gone down, he's become their go-to guy, and he can carry the team literally on his back if need be, if that's the situation. Cleveland's only got 3 healthy wide receivers. They're going to all be on the football playing field coming into this football game. But because of the running game, it balances the attack. And if the attack is balanced, you have a good chance, especially with a 6-point underdog, to accomplish the mission. The other side of the equation here is this. Last year, we talked about the Cleveland Browns being all hyped up. They were the team. They were the team that everybody wanted to jump on out of Vegas. You remember that.
Yep.
First game of the season, what happens? Here comes Tennessee into the dog pound.
Yep.
Browns favored 43-13. Thank you. See you later. Goodbye. Adios. Season over. That's what happened to the Cleveland Browns last year. And believe me, they remember that. And I think that's going to be the impetus that's going to serve this football team in this football game. I'm going to throw out one more handicapping side of the game. In Tennessee, you've got a football team here now that is going home off back-to-back straight-up underdog wins. The last one against a division opponent, a revenge win against a division opponent. And now what are they doing? They're changing roles. They're going to lay 6 points into a football team that has a 8-win season in the making here right now. That's a very, very difficult task for Tennessee to have to overcome here. I think Cleveland comes with everything they got. I think they win the football game, and I think you should also play them on the money line as well.
Oh, okay. And by the way, about revenge situations, let's throw in the fact that Tennessee is just 4-12 straight up after they score 28 or more points, taking on teams seeking revenge. So that's another one.
That fits like a glove right into this very same game. Exactly right.
Yeah, and Tennessee has also not been a very good favorite team this year. They're just 2-4-1 against the spread as a favorite. One of those wins was the overtime win against Houston as a 4-point favorite, which kind of doesn't count. So it does on the score sheet, but for our purposes, it really doesn't. It just shows you that when they're a favorite, they're not doing a very good job of covering these games.
No, they're not, and that's not their role. That's not what this team is built like. They're built like the team that went into Indianapolis as an underdog and surprised them and outplayed them. But when you have to dress up in the role of a favorite and wear
Yep.
that cloak, that's changing roles, and that's a very difficult task for teams to do, especially those that are developing, if you will. And Tennessee is, I would call, a developing team since Ryan Tannehill took this team over last year.
Still like both teams to make the postseason, even if Cleveland drops this game. You know what? I don't know when Lamar Jackson's going to come back. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But that is going to be a huge game next week when Cleveland takes on Baltimore. Another revenge situation for the Browns, especially in the division. And that could be for a playoff spot. It really could be. Tennessee, meanwhile, 3 of their final 4 games are against losing teams. So this is not the must-win game. If you're talking about which team definitely needs the game more, it's the Cleveland Browns as well.
Well, they do, largely because they're the kid that hasn't been there in a long, long time, and now they're knocking on that door and feeling awfully good about it. And I love the fact, as you mentioned, as we open the conversation up about them being dissed about not being able to beat good football teams.
Yep.
I think they can put that animal to bed if they accomplish the mission and knock off Tennessee on Sunday.
Okay, let's go out west. Let's talk some NFC football. Seattle, the line has been bumped to 11 against the Giants because it's looking more and more like Daniel Jones will not play. Colt McCoy will get the start. And a few things on this one. And I know it's not trend related, which we like to throw a lot about here, which we should. But I think this is one of those situations where, I think for both teams, Seattle hasn't really had a chance to breathe for a while in a winning game. And the Giants haven't really slipped up in a while. I just get the feeling this is a perfect game for both of those. And you can actually call them trends, both of those in-season trends to snap, where Seattle goes into the fourth quarter with a 2-score lead or more. They don't have to worry about, are we going to win this game with 5 minutes to go? And the Giants, a yeoman's effort all season in this terrible NFC East, for them to be in the spot right now as at the top for potential playoff. Great job, no question. I think they're the team out of all 4 teams that have still shown a lot of promise over the last couple of months. But I think eventually you're going to have that bad week. Eventually. And I think this is the perfect spot for the Giants to have that bad week without Daniel Jones, going out to the West Coast. And NFC East versus NFC West. You're talking maybe the best division in football against the worst division in football. That's why I like Seattle. And I'm going to go ahead and give the 11.
To me, this is a very, very tough, difficult call, largely because of the Daniel Jones situation for the New York Giants. When I wrote the game up in the newsletter, we said that he will probably be out. The word I heard coming into the show is yes, he is out, which makes it difficult to back a football team like this. I would normally tell you about the fact that the Giants had covered 8 straight road games in a row, and all 5 under Joe Judge after last week's win, but no cover at Cincinnati. They've been a very, very good road team, have the New York Giants. You've got Seattle Seahawks have really been really good in this, the 12th game of the season. They're 14-1 straight up and against the spread.
That's crazy.
For whatever reason, they cook in the 12th game of the football season here.
Yep.
But you've got these NFC East teams, when they're playing outside the division, as you talked about, 5-19-2 and just 9-16-1 to the spread. It's a very difficult call because you can make cases for both football teams in this game, more cases than for Seattle, but I'm not chasing that number. If this game were around the Seattle a touchdown in the football game, I'd say yes, we can make the case, but not laying double digits. I don't trust the Seattle defense, who finally played a decent game last week.
And we have been talking about Seattle's defense all season that, well, let's see what happens when Jamal Adams is healthy again. Let's see what happens when they do go out and get Carlos Dunlap, which they have, and he's definitely had an impact. Hey, let's see whether or not some of the other guys that, whether it's free agent, Damon Harrison, or some of the young kids that they've picked up through the draft will get healthy, and it's happening. A lot of these kids are getting healthier. Now, there is a chance Dunlap may not play. I'm a little bit concerned with that, but I get the feeling he will. It sounds like more of a pain threshold thing. So, but I think moving forward, it's a good sign for Seattle's Super Bowl chances that their defense, if they can maintain the health, and these young kids continue to get more reps and so forth, and Jamal Adams can get healthier too, that they can be good enough in the postseason to win a Super Bowl, which they were not just a month ago, but I think they are getting close to doing that now.
Well, Jamal Adams is the anchor of that defense, and they're going to be as good as he plays, and he can play very, very good. I mean, he's the best at his position. So I can see that working in their favor here. They've also inched their way back up to the number 2 playoff seed going into this week here after being a little bit wobbly, if you will. I don't think they want to give that back up against the likes of a New York Giant football team. Maybe against an LA Rams team where they know they'll be in for a real battle. I don't think this will be a real physical game for Seattle here, kind of the game that Pete Carroll looks for. A little bit of finesse for the Seattle Seahawks here. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're correct and they win comfortably in this contest here. It's just in my blood. I know this Giants, and they have this way about them of hanging close in road football games. That's my biggest concern.
Well, I would have stayed clear away from this game had they covered the 9th straight time on the road, which they did not, as you mentioned, against Cincinnati last week. Once that breaks, especially when the streak breaks, then I kind of step back. So, all right, let's see what they do in the next game. And if they win the next game, then I go back to them.
Well, let me throw this in there because there's a perfect segue for what you just said. Once that streak broke, you know what we call that? A chink in the armor. Okay,
all right.
That's the chink. Okay, in the armor. When you see that, when it occurs, whether it's snapping a win streak like it were, snapping a streak of any kind, snapping a streak where you've been dominating the stats and you win a game and all of a sudden you got pushed around in the stats, that's a chink. So those are signs that you look for, and that's a good chink in the armor against the Giants in that sense that they won the Cincinnati game but did not cash the ticket.
Also, the Giants have not played an elite quarterback all season, not only because of the weak NFC East, but just in general. The schedule has been very favorable to them. They haven't played anybody like Russell Wilson. So they're 0-3 against winning teams this year, including the 2 losses versus NFC West opponents by a 53-18 margin. So they've only scored 18 points in 2 games against San Francisco and the LA Rams. And finally, they're 2-11 against the spread in their last 13 games on the road when they take on an opponent coming off back-to-back straight-up wins. So I'll take Seattle, give the 11. And by the way, Seattle, Jets, Washington next. So they're in good shape as far as the schedule. If New Orleans slips up, maybe Seattle could take that number 1 seed over. And meanwhile, the Giants will host Arizona and then Cleveland next week. The Giants have a tough schedule coming up starting on Sunday with Seattle. So even though I think they're the better of the 4 teams, the schedule looks like it might be the toughest.
For the Giants, unquestionably.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it will be. And I think they're going to look back at the season and say, do you remember the week we were in first place in the division this year? Not that they're not going to finish there, but at least for now, they can say they are a first-place team.
All right. Also out west in the NFC, the Rams and Arizona. And, the Rams, I really don't like taking the Rams in these situations, like, unless they're a dog, maybe, and I don't have to worry too much if I want to take the money line. But just 3 points, it's not a lot, but they're still the favorite. I just can't put my money on Jared Goff. I just can't. It drives me crazy, no matter how good the defense is. And I know it hurt him last week. Ramsey wasn't 100% healthy, but he looks like he's going to be back to being close to 100% or as close to it going up against Hopkins this week in Arizona. This is the one game, though, and I'm staying away from this game this week. This is the one game that has the most trends of any game this week. I mean, you could just go, here's 4 good ones from the Rams, here's 4 good ones for Arizona, and that's why I'm staying away from it, because the only thing that I was, the lean was towards the Rams. They haven't lost back-to-back games this year. So that shows that they're able to kind of get back going after one loss. And they do have a real good defense. And Arizona's struggling, and I don't trust that Kyler Murray's healthy with the shoulder. There's no coincidence that he hasn't been playing well, and there's talk of that shoulder being hurt. And I think they're doing the wrong thing, Arizona. They should have benched him before the Patriot game last week. The more they just let him keep playing without resting him, the worse it's going to be. He's not going to be able to recover from this injury. I think they're panicking, and they better hope he gets healthy while he's playing. I just think it's a bad decision, but maybe they know something I don't.
Well, I liked Arizona real well when we put the newsletter together here on Tuesday. But then I had to back off a little bit because the reality is that Kyler Murray's not healthy. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, we saw that last week. I mean, on plays where he would be running, stretching, sliding, and doing everything he can to get a few extra yards, he was coming up short and laying down. So that tells you that he's obviously not right. Now, if this week of in between games helps him and he is anything close to being healthy, I think they've got a good chance in this football game. Mm-hmm. But like you say, this is like a high stakes poker game with the trends. You want to make a bet with your trend? I'll see your bet and I'll raise you too. Then you can raise me too. That's you can bring the trends in until the cows come home in this football game. What I do like the most about Arizona situationally is the fact that, and this is rare, that I look for these teams all the time in the National Football League, and I usually get one or two of them a year, and this is one of them. This is the first one. You find a winning team in the second half of the season that goes home off back-to-back road losses, where they were expected to lose the game, and they did. But all the public remembers is they're off back-to-back losses. Well, they lost on the road. Now they're going home. A winning team that has revenge and is playing a division game. That's an ideal situation for Arizona to be in this game here. And like I say, I would have been ready to snap the rubber band, and I would have had he been healthy, and for sure would have if in this football contest here the Rams weren't coming off the loss. So a lot very, very close. It's like a game of horseshoes with Arizona for me. Very close, but I'm not going to pitch the horseshoe because there's too much going on outside of all these numbers and situations.
And here's the Playbook magazine. I'm going to show everybody because this is the spot right here, Arizona. I'm going to point to it right here. This is the trend of the year for Arizona in the Playbook magazine. So going into the season, the Cardinals were 13-1 against the spread when they came off consecutive straight up and against the spread losses, including 12-0-1 against the spread versus sub 700 foes. Well, they improved upon that, winning after they lost consecutive games to Detroit and Carolina, blowing out the Jets. So that puts them at 14-1 against the spread and 13-0-1 versus sub 700 foes, which, by the way, works out here as well. So that's the one that you just go, oh, I got to take Arizona. And unfortunately, there are just some bad ones. I mean, they've lost 8 straight covers at home when they take on an opponent off a straight-up favored loss. They're just in games 9 through 12. They're 2-17 against the spread as a winning team versus an opponent off a straight-up ATS loss. But on the flip side, you got the Rams 1-17 against the spread in their last 18 when they take on opponents with a winning percentage of 14 or better after back-to-back straight-up losses. And this is the point. You can go back and forth with who's worse on these trends, but the one that really sticks out positively is the one I led off with, which is in the magazine.
Yeah, when you've got a 14-1 on one side and a 1-17 on the other side going against them, it's very, very difficult to make a case for the 1-17 team.
Yeah.
Now you can start with the Kyler Murray situation, but I think you have to let it go just because of the situations being what they are. So as I mentioned here, here it is Tuesday. We're putting the newsletter together here. We called Arizona over the Rams by 3, and knowing they're going to be the dog in the football game, and would have loved it and made it possibly even a best bet had we not had the Kyler Murray situation being what it is. So don't be surprised. I'm going to say this. Don't be surprised if you see a much better effort from Kyler Murray, who could be healthier, but he could also have an injury that could end up being type of an injury that's going to require an operation at the end of the season.
Yeah, they better hope he's healthy. And I'll tell you what, if they steal the game, and let's say it's an ugly defensive game, which it could be, and when they win the game, their schedule, they will play 3 losing teams in a row. And then the rematch comes in LA with the Rams. If I'm Arizona and they win the game and they get lucky and it's obvious that Murray cannot go on like this, I'm sitting him. I have to sit him at least a week or two because now I've got a little bit of room because I've won the game and so forth. Again, like I said, though, unless they know something I don't. But if we just see another bad performance from Kyler Murray, I don't think they know something we don't.
Here's a question to ponder. With the quarterback situation being what it is in the National Football League, we saw obviously the worst of it with the Denver Broncos in their last game when all 3 quarterbacks were ruled out by COVID. They had no backup options, and they had to play with the wide receiver at quarterback, which was absolutely disgusting. Roger Goodell should have never allowed that. He should have given him one more day off to be eligible and play that football game on Monday. But that's another story. If Arizona gets to the point where Kyler Murray goes out, can Cliff Kingsbury activate himself as a quarterback and step in? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't think he's allowed to do that.
I don't think so.
This is also something that when I said I was leaning towards LA, if I would have taken him, the other is because, and again, it had nothing to do with trends. I like to go with series matchups sometimes over trends, and the Rams have dominated this series. They've won 6 straight up and against the spread by a 195-48 margin. That's by a 32-8 winning margin in every game over the last 6. That's complete destruction. 6 straight. And that's again, that was one of the reasons I was siding with the Rams before I decided to chicken out.
Well, that's another. There's your 17-1 trend, and here's what I'll raise you. I'll raise you on the series. So it goes back and forth. It's quite an intriguing football matchup, to say the least.
All right, let's go with the Saints, that team with the first seed in the NFC, taking on the Falcons, who just love to play good football in the second half of the season when they're out of it. We talked about this with Taysom Hill, and we have really for a week or two. His performances haven't been all that great, but they're winning games. And it's the craziest deal that they have won and covered 7 straight games as a program without Drew Brees. It's crazy, but it also shows you how good their defense has been over the last couple of years for them to be able to accomplish this. Look, the way I decided to do this was, again, not a whole lot of trends. It was more of just what I see, including just what's going on this year. The Saints have won 8 straight. They covered 4 straight by a 120-28 margin, including the 15-point win over Atlanta just a few weeks ago. And you have a situation, too, where I don't know if Julio Jones is playing. He may or may not. That's a big weapon to take out of your lineup if he's not in there. Plus, the clincher for me in taking the Saints and liking them is just a 3-point favorite. I mean, this is the number 1 seed in the NFC. I know it's no Drew Brees, but again, they're winning and covering without him. This is the number 1 seed. They're a 3-point favorite. So, okay, I'll take that. That's the way I'm going.
Well, just before we did the show, I got word that Julio Jones pronounced himself fit and ready to play.
Okay.
So if he does play, that will be a big factor.
Absolutely.
Cog for that Atlanta football lineup, not only for his physical presence, but what he would bring also just in the morale to the football team. I do like Atlanta in this football contest here, and I don't like Taysom Hill as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He got by last week because it was the Denver Broncos and that god-awful football game.
That game meant nothing. Yeah, that was 0.
And even when it meant nothing, he showed nothing.
Sure.
Okay. I don't believe he's a pure quarterback. I mean, back in his days at BYU, maybe, okay, but he's developed into a wildcat runner in the National Football League, and you can only go so far wearing a masquerade or a costume in the National Football League. They're going to catch on to you real quick, okay. And I think they can. Raheem Morris might defensively scheme a lot better against him. What he's done, in essence, is he's taken Alvin Kamara out of the play in this attack for New Orleans. Drew Brees would utilize Kamara to the max. Okay, he would set up the passing game, but because Taysom Hill is a run-first type quarterback, he's not even looking to Alvin Kamara. Rather than passing the football to him, he's going to run the ball himself. And I think it really, really puts a lid on New Orleans' offensive attack coming into the football contest here. And there's other parts of this game that I do like. The Falcons are when they're a dog and they're coming up an underdog win, they're 9-1 to the spread. That's a real nice role to be in here. And you've also got the familiarity of these two teams in this South Division here, and they love to go back and forth with the underdogs trading wins when they're in revenge. So I think all in all, you're going to look for a big effort from Atlanta in this game.
Yeah, the Falcons covered 6 of 7 as a home dog, but New Orleans 14-4 against the spread in their last 18 as a road favorite. Again, with me, it was just more of I'm just going to try to not to put too much into the thinking process of the game. I'm going to go, okay, who's the better football team? I'm only given 3. I think I'm going to try to take advantage of that. We'll see. Atlanta, their win last week over Las Vegas was their first win this year versus winning team. And fact, though, is they just seem to be playing some really good football once again in the second half of the season. And I don't know what that's going to mean for Raheem Morris. Because, look, they got to find a GM first. So if I'm the Falcons, you've hired the GM and let him make the call. I don't know. I don't know if Raheem Morris comes back. Possible, because the fact that he's black and everything that's been going on in the NFL and in the world, yeah, maybe they're pressured into keeping him on if he continues to coach well. But talking to my Atlanta people, when he got the job, even, it was almost like they had to win like every game in order for them to not go with an offensive coach, because this Atlanta program needs an offensive head coach. They haven't had one in a long time.
Well, I agree, and the case will be for Raheem Morris if he wins out. It'll be very, very difficult to pass on him. One, he's a minority hire, which the league will really, really be all in favor of.
Yep.
And how can you refute? I mean, 6 games he's been their head coach. They've won and covered 4 of them. They've out-yarded 5 of those opponents.
This could be the clincher.
Yeah. My goodness. I mean, and they like him. That's the other part of the thing. And they like him, so they're going to come and play for him, which is really, really good. So a lot of good things working for them, and they're also mirroring this year what they did last year. After the 0-5 start this year, they're playing the same way they did last year when they started out 1-7 and closed out 7-1. They're on that same path. They remember it last year, and I think it's just melded into them that they know that they can play well down the stretch the second half of the season, and I'm going to look for that effort on Sunday.
Okay, let's get to Sunday Night Football, and Kansas City is a big 14-point favorite in this one. Huge spread. The Sunday Night Football home team this year is 9-4 straight up and against the spread. That's where I'm going to go here. I know Denver's going to have a normal quarterback and all, but I like Kansas City against Denver when they played in Denver. And you look at here, here's why. I mean, they've won 10 straight against Denver. They're 8-1-1 against the spread in those 10. They won the game 43-16 on the 25th of October, and they have beaten Denver the last 3 times they played them by a 96-25 margin. Yes, the one thing I'm concerned with is that they have not covered in their last 3 games, only winning by a total of 9 points. But maybe it works for them in knowing that, look, it's prime time and all that. Let's just get this thing over with early for once. And I kind of think that they're going to go that direction. I don't know. Denver really, besides the win against Miami, and it wasn't like Drew Lock had a good game against Miami, the passing game has been non-existent for a while now for Denver.
It has, and the truth of the matter is this score will likely be whatever Patrick Mahomes wants it to be.
Yeah.
He could name the score, and it's almost sinful that you have a team that has a tandem like Patrick Mahomes and a terrific wide receiver. I mean, my goodness, you saw the show that he put on last week.
Tyreek Hill, yep.
Unbelievable. I mean, how can you stop those two together when they're in stride? That's going to make it very, very difficult, I think, down the stretch and in the playoffs for this football team. Now, will they play down to Denver's level here this week? They shouldn't, because they're the Super Bowl champions and because it's a division football game.
And it's prime time.
It's prime time, right? But I could also see them having the spread covered with 5 minutes to go in the game, and Patrick Mahomes is watching the game with us on the
Sure,
sidelines.
sure.
So, that backdoor possibility exists in a game like this. And because it does, and it's a division opponent, if I had to play the game, put a gun to my head, I'd take the points.
The game on Monday, there's two games. The early game, the 5 o'clock game, Pittsburgh and Washington. Now, before we get into some of these things here, I just want to say, what in the world is this line doing 7? I mean, what? There's something going on here. Somebody's not telling me something, right? I mean, this is one of those games where I'm like, huh? Really? I kind of want to put a lot on this, but somebody's not telling me something. I can feel it. I don't know what it is, but I'm getting hoodwinked here. 7? Come on. And it was 8.5 just a couple days ago. Tell me, what is going on here? How is this not the top game of the week to take Pittsburgh?
I can only say this, Greg, and it's my favorite acronym. ABO, always beware of the obvious.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I know.
And this may be the ABO game of the week. We know there is something wrong with Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's had the COVID issues, but before the COVID issues, he has not played well because he's injured. And I think we're going to find him to be much the same case going on when the football season ends next year, undergoing some type of surgery, maybe a Kyler Murray type thing. I don't know. They're both running a similar path here right now as we're watching. A welcome addition, obviously, to what we saw in RG3 last week in that performance. But as you say, there's a football team that right now needs this game like a vampire needs blood. They're losing ground to Cleveland in the division here. They can't even think about a loss. This is a Dallas Cowboy football team that if the situation weren't what it is, you'd have made this line 11 or 12 Baltimore. So
actually, I was talking about the Pittsburgh game.
Oh, I thought you were talking Baltimore and Dallas.
No, I was talking about the Monday 5 o'clock game, the Pittsburgh game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's you can keep going on with your, because we could talk about that too, because that line went the other way, which I was a little surprised about. Baltimore was 7, now they're 9. I'm like, wait, somebody tell me that Lamar Jackson was playing? I haven't heard that Lamar Jackson's playing. Why would that game go from 7 to 9?
Well, when you said 7, that's what I remember the opening number being on Baltimore, and I just skipped the Tuesday game is what I did. Okay, so
why do you think the line went to 9? Do you think they know Lamar Jackson's playing?
Yes, it's just a confirmation that he's playing. 7 was the safe number in case he wasn't, but now that he's playing, it's where it is. It moved back up, and it'll be a 10-point line when they go to play the football game. But now let's go back to your point. Pittsburgh 7 over Washington.
Yeah, how is that 7?
Well, there is not a lot of respect for Pittsburgh right now. They played a tremendously weak football schedule here. They're going to have a weak schedule going out on top of it. There are not a lot of purists, if you will, NFL purists, that believe this football team should be even on the same plane as New England was when they were 18-0 and Miami had that perfect season here. Washington has come alive here of late. They're a football. They're playing some pretty good football.
Yeah, they're playing well, no question.
Yeah, they've out-yarded each of the last 5 opponents in a row. That speaks all in 2 and 4 itself.
They're not good teams they're beating, but they are beating them up. Yes,
but they're beating them and they're winning the wars on the field and the stats.
Yes.
Right. And you've also got the Alex Smith situation going on here right now, who has been, for the most part, at the helm of this resurgence here of late. So all that is there, but you're still talking about an undefeated football team playing a team out of the NFC East.
Yes.
And this number, in truth, should be Pittsburgh -7 at Washington.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's not. It's Pittsburgh -7 at home. So this could well be that ABO game. Always beware of the obvious. The odds maker does not fall asleep on games. And I've also told myself, never, ever handicap the odds maker. He knows exactly what it is he's doing. If I wanted to make a case in this game for Washington and saw 7 points, I would probably back out of it because I wouldn't feel I'm getting full value.
Sure.
So I'm, not that I'm going to second guess the odds maker. I just feel like what I'm left with, I'm not getting value. If I liked Pittsburgh in the football game and I saw 7 points, I'd feel, wow, I have a tremendous amount of value. But then the red flag goes up. Why do I have this kind of a value? in a game where it should be at least double digits. So this is a very, very difficult game to handicap, largely because of what you say, the line being where it is.
Yeah, I don't know if they're making too much out of this. They're playing their third game in 12 days, which really is not a strange deal. But it is a short kind of situation for Pittsburgh. And as you mentioned, Washington has covered their 4-1-1 against the spread in their last 6, coming up their best win of the season, where Pittsburgh is coming off one of their ugliest wins of the season. But again, I think you have to look at the game that Pittsburgh was playing, another situation, and it's just, you got to throw that out. I'm sorry, I don't. If they play like that against Washington this week, that's different. But I have to throw that out. Washington, and remember they beat Dallas. Washington 0-4 straight up, 0-3-1 against the spread versus winning teams by a 125-62 margin. So they have lost their 4 games against winning teams by a 31-15 margin. I only have to give up 7 points. I mean, look, I like Alex Smith. I hope he pulls it out. No one, I mean, we all do, but you don't win these games, these point spreads with your heart.
Another part of the weirdness in this line is you've got Pittsburgh in a really, really tricky scheduling spot here, coming off a Wednesday game, okay, and then playing a Monday game, okay. We've seen teams come off Monday games and come back on Sunday, but now this is one less game for that type of a situation on a parallel from a Wednesday to a Monday.
Yeah, it's like a Thursday, and Washington has extra rest.
So if you were a biorhythm type of guy, you would say that your biorhythms are going to be a little a little funky here, a bit out of sorts. In this sense, in the situation. And it's what's happening in the National Football League with these teams that are being affected by the COVID. It's affecting their practice schedule. Yep. It's affecting the way they're playing the game on the field. We're seeing these junior varsity type football games because of the players and the time delays and the constraints and everything like that. So that could also be factoring into this line.
Well, to me, I think that's the way Washington has a chance, because that's it. That's the only way Washington has a chance. Pittsburgh is clearly the better football team. They are going to need Pittsburgh to be completely out of whack with their time schedule. I think it helps, though, Pittsburgh, that they're coming off an ugly performance. Look at what they did the last time they came off that ugly performance against the Cowboys. They responded big. I think they're going to respond big again here. The next Monday night game is the primetime game, Buffalo, San Francisco. That's another good one. San Francisco's turned into a 1-point favorite. It's been bouncing back a little bit. The road team on Monday Night Football has won 9 out of 13 this year. And that's I'm going to stick with Buffalo in this one. They've won 4 out of 5. They lost the Hail Mary game. I know it hasn't been pretty the way they've won. But San Francisco, I don't know. I'm still not sure I can trust that they can string along wins. A nice win against the Rams, but to do it again against maybe an even better team, I don't know. They're still playing with a lot of key backups, including a backup quarterback. I think maybe it's asking a little bit too much to win back-to-back against good football teams.
Well, the first part is who's the road team here? Because the game
in Arizona, yeah.
Exactly, but benefits San Francisco because it is a division site where they frequent every year. And Buffalo did have that horror story.
Oh, they got to go back to the same location. Okay, yeah.
To the same location.
Oh no, we got to be here again.
Yeah, exactly. maybe they look at it like it's a chance to right a wrong too.
Maybe.
It could well be that case. But what you have here is a clear-cut case of one team that plays extremely well on Monday nights and another football team that plays terribly on Monday nights. San Francisco has dominated. In my database, 45-21 since 1980, 46-19-1 to the spread. Frisco on Monday nights. And you can look at Buffalo Monday nights here. This football team really, really struggles. Just 1-8 straight up, 1-6-2 to the spread. Monday night non-division football game. So those Monday night situations do favor San Francisco in this contest here. But I think San Francisco is this football team that it's sort of like when our president came down with COVID and he went to Walter Reed and they gave him these miracle drugs and he come out all charged and enthused and everything, okay? Maybe San Francisco has taken a slug of hydroxychloroquine. And now that they're healthy, we're going to see a much, much better San Francisco football team. I think they are going to be a much, much better football team because I like their head coach, Kyle Shanahan, and they are healthy here. So for that reason, I'm going to back the San Francisco 49ers in the game.
All right. And by the way, as far as that Tuesday game, the Baltimore-Dallas game, the 7 points to me before Lamar Jackson was going to be the starter, I still felt was about right. The extra 2 points. I mean, I wouldn't want to give up the extra 2 points. I mean, I don't trust Baltimore as this heavy favorite in this spot when they haven't played well for over a month. Just because Lamar Jackson's playing, what's that have to do with anything? He hasn't been playing well. And I could see the Cowboys giving, I know they didn't look good against Washington, but I can kind of see Dallas hanging in there a little bit with Baltimore. Look, I would never take Dallas in this spot. But I don't want to be given 9-10 points if I don't have to, but it looks like I'm going to have to.
Well, you remember, Lamar Jackson's never lost a game against an NFC team in his brief career.
Undefeated.
Yep. Undefeated. I'm not talking 1-0 and 2-0. I'm talking 8-0. Okay,
how about the spread?
Nothing. If it was anything good to the spread, that would have been next to the number. Okay, I think he's 4-4 to the spread.
Okay.
In those games, okay, but he has at least shown an ability to beat NFC teams. Against NFC teams at home, okay, overall, 4-7 against the spread, non-division at home for Lamar Jackson. So what he does do well is he beats up on bad teams and he loses to good teams, okay? Dallas fits the former, being a bad team.
Right.
And Baltimore will probably struggle to make the playoffs because they can't beat winning teams or good teams, which might favor Cleveland in that matchup come next week. It remains to be seen. But I'm still not going to back Lamar Jackson laying points because I don't think he's 100% healthy.
All right, and then quickly, I just wanted to note that New England and the Chargers, I like New England this week because if you look at the Chargers, they have 3 wins this year over the Jets, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati. Those are the top 3 teams picking in the NFL draft as of today. So if that's all you can do is beat the Jets, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati, maybe New England got themselves a nice reprieve because they were very fortunate to win the game against Arizona last week. And I kind of feel that they'll find a way to win this week against the Chargers as well, and they don't have to really give up anything. It's to pick them.
Well, what you've got here, I think, is you've got one coach that knows how to win, the other doesn't. There's a phrase about Anthony Lynn. He loses all these close football games. In fact, there's the new phrase it's called linning, when you outplay the opponent, but you can't win the football game.
Interesting.
And that's the case for the Chargers. And I would never ever want to, in a pick'em situation, have to ask Anthony Lynn to take down Bill Belichick.
And finally, the Detroit-Chicago game. When I saw that Mitch Trubisky, when I saw this, I believe this might have been in the daily emails. Trubisky 16-3 straight up versus losing teams in his career. I first was like, what? I didn't even know he won that many games. But we do have to remember they had a nice little run early on in his career, and he had a playoff deal there, and it looked like, hey, things were going to go well. Well, that's like it feels like it's been like 10 years since those days. But it does bring out a point that they're playing a losing team, and I wanted to ask you if there were any, because I know there are. What kind of key trends to look out for with Matt Patricia being fired and Detroit playing their first game without him?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Greg, because inside this week's Playbook Football newsletter, I do a feature column called Bet You Didn't Know. And they largely come out of a publication that I do is called the Black Book. And the Black Book is systems and angles, and they're all themed around music and songs and so forth and whatnot. And this article this week is called Substitute, a song by The Who, and in reference to the fact of interim coaches in the National Football League being substitute coaches. Well, they're at their absolute worst, interim coaches are, in the situation tonight in this game that Detroit finds themselves in this contest here. And basically what it is when that interim coach is in a division game taking on an opponent off a loss. And that's exactly the case here with the Detroit up against Chicago. 11-33 straight up, 11-34-1 against the spread since 1985. I don't want any Detroit Lions here. Sometimes when a coach leaves a football team, the teams are really happy, gratified because they felt he was the reason he was holding them back. I just don't think there's enough talent on this Detroit football team to be able to do anything about that. So not that I'm making a big case for the Chicago Bears. It's more of an anti-interim coach situation here. So my database says fade the interim coach in a situation like this.
Well, actually, I do like Chicago. Keep in mind, they've lost 5 straight, but 4 of the 5 were versus winning teams. And they've beaten Detroit 5 straight, including that week 1 comeback with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. So, yeah, I kind of like Chicago in the game anyway, but 3 points is as much as I'll give away. All right, go ahead.
But one quick thing here, Greg, before I know we're going to go to another subject.
Sure, go ahead.
But I'm going to go so far as to say this, that I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to end up being a Ryan Tannehill in his career. He'll end up being traded because he has to get out of Chicago. And wherever he goes, okay, he's still a talented quarterback, okay, who just didn't have enough players around him. And you might find that to be a Ryan Tannehill type case. He's got an arm, okay? That's the reason they trade up to get him in that draft. And he started out pretty well in the National Football League. The other thing I want to bring out is this. This time of the year, every time of this football season, I will look at every team in the league heading into December to see how they've done in head-to-head games against winning teams for the season. It's a great gauge to figure out whether or not these teams are capable of closing out, or even better, if these teams, once they make the playoffs, if they can handle and they've beaten winning teams throughout the course of the season. If they haven't, they end up tripping out real early in the playoffs.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a little stat at you here after I did this, and anybody can find this on the website at playbook.com. It's an article that I wrote, and you'll really like it. So there are only 2 teams in the National Football League that are winless, both straight up and against the spread against winning teams. And I'm talking winning at the time they played the game. Okay. One of those teams is the Washington Redskins. They're 0-3 straight up, 0-2-1 against the spread. You want to win a bar bet? Tell me who the other team is. It's going to be a playoff team.
I'll say the Saints.
Try the Green Bay Packers.
Packers.
Yep, they have played Sisters of the Poor this season here. They've only gone up against 2 teams that had winning records. They lost both of the games straight up and against the spread. Because largely of the division in which they play in here, Minnesota's had this season where they've had a losing record most of the season.
Okay.
The Bears and the Lions are also in that division, so they're playing those teams 6 times. So they're not going to get credit for any wins against winning teams against that division here. So when they do step outside of the division and play teams that have winning records here, they really, really struggle. So keep that tucked in the back of your head come playoff time.
And again, that is at the time when they played them.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Because I was thinking back to actually that New Orleans game, which the Saints were 1-1 at the time that they beat the Saints.
That's correct.
All right. So what's going on? You got playbook.com. You have the daily emails, the newsletters that come out, the midweek newsletters. It's a big time of year for football and also college basketball.
It is a big time right now. As I mentioned, month of December is a great time to be handicapping football. It's also a great time because these teams have put all these stats together in place to show you who they really, truly are. And the key to winning is going inside those stats and finding out exactly what these teams are about. Forget their record, what their record says win-loss-wise. Delve into the stats and put yourself in a position to win.
All right, Mark, thanks a lot. We'll get back to our normal schedule next week, hopefully, because anything can happen over the next couple of days to change those plans, but hopefully we'll be back to our regular Wednesday schedule, and then we're off to week 14 in the NFL. Can't wait.
Hey, I'll look forward to that, Greg. Be well, stay safe, and I'll catch you next week.